The Objective News Network, the 65 Project. Hello, this is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network. Welcome to our broadcast for Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. The other day, I was poking around on the internet and came across this. A group of lawyers who have banded together to target other lawyers alleged to have aided attempts by former President Donald Trump and his supporters to overturn the 2020 election results. The group pledges to use advertisements, threats of disbarment, and changing the rules within the American Bar Association itself to strike back at these allegedly evil and unethical lawyers. But before we begin, let's consider the objective and logical ground truth as to the allegation that the 2020 election was stolen by Donald Trump's Democrat opponents. First off, if Donald Trump tried everything he could, as alleged by his political foes, to overturn the transfer of power in the United States, he didn't succeed. Did he? No. Second, it used to be that one of the key elements of guilt or innocence used to be whether the individual was culpable for the so-called crime. So, did President Trump himself actually believe that there was enough voter fraud out there in election land to have affected the outcome of the election? Sure he did. Third, did he really incite protesters to rebellion? And I use that word very carefully. Rebellion is a very powerful word. By suggesting that a group of protesters marched to Capitol Hill to show their displeasure at what he may have thought in his own mind was a violation of the Constitution by his political opponents in the first place. What about all of those undercover FBI agents out there in the crowd? And what about those secret tapes of the so-called rebellion? These are just a few of the reasons you must be so circumspect when you attempt to prosecute anyone by combining their politics with the law. If President Trump believed that the election was in fact stolen and then told Vice President Pence to object to Congress, is this a crime? No, it is not. Indictment after indictment after indictment in jurisdictions that are governed by politically weaponized prosecutors and self-proclaimed Trump haters who are purposely pulling off Lady Justice's blindfold. Well, so much for the entire idea of separation of powers. It is a well-known fact that at least some voter fraud occurred during the elections. This is a fact that simply cannot be denied. But what has been in dispute is the amount of voting fraud. Was it enough to have made a difference in the overall outcome? Most observers, in retrospect, agree that the answer is no. Based on this, most of those of the Democrat persuasion have condemned Donald Trump over and over again when he insists that the election was stolen. The only problem with this sort of self-fulfilling logic is that there is more than one way to steal an election in modern America. Stealing an election is not the type of problem that can be explained by a single factor analysis. For example, another way to steal an election is for the mass media to sell its heart and soul to one political party over another, and then spread misinformation, disinformation, omit information, add bias, and to parse out airtime to one candidate over another. If we all just take a second to look at the true facts, guess what the real truth shows us? Another much bigger RICO enterprise than they are already alleging that President Trump engaged in. The mass media during the 2020 election allowed itself to become politically weaponized by internal and corporate Democrat Party interests, and the numbers show the very obvious bias in reporting during the 2020 election cycle. The numbers and written contents simply don't lie. In this sense, the breakdown in ethical reporting by the major news media play a major role in stealing the election from Donald Trump. Whether you like Donald Trump or hate him, the genuine facts, and I say genuine facts, show that when Donald Trump came to the election plate, he came there with one strike against him and one arm tied behind his back. In the old days, we used to have in America something called the free press. The press in America is no longer free. The press in America sold its heart and soul, and the heart and soul of ethical journalism was bought and sold a long time ago to corporate interests that pursue ideologies that are most conducive to making money for themselves. A direct conflict of interest. There's no civic responsibility anymore. Objectivity is out the window. To make money, you have to go on to get along with those in the best position to pay you, and in this case, pay you off. Sound like a RICO enterprise to you? This is the true underlying scandal of the entire 2020 election. Now, back to this organization with the odd name of Project 65. The 65 Project was the brainchild of Democrat consultant and former Clinton administration official Melissa Moss. It is a project of LawWorks, a group that has no website or public financial disclosure statements that we could find anywhere on the internet. According to news reports, LawWorks has previously received grants from the public policy-oriented foundation Democracy Fund and is a fiscal project of the Franklin Education Forum, another nonprofit organization that provides training and support to, and I quote, advance and broaden the appeal of the progressive cause, close quote. The name 65 Project refers to the number of lawsuits filed by supporters of President Donald Trump to overturn the 2020 presidential election. At their website, Project 65 proclaims that they are a, quote, bipartisan effort to protect democracy and preserve the rule of law. Upon closer scrutiny, however, we find that Project 65 is getting grants from organizations like the Franklin Education Forum and the Democracy Fund, which are both partisan, Democrat-leaning organizations that, quote, advance and broaden the appeal of the progressive cause. Sounds like a wolf in sheep's clothing to me. So what's wrong with this picture, you might ask? One group of lawyers is singling out other lawyers for acting in unethical ways? Sure sounds like the pot calling the kettle black to me. Politics mixing with the law? In the good old days, you used to be innocent until you were proven guilty in a court of law. In the good old days, lawyers, your lawyer in particular, was supposed to fight for you, the client, not the political opposition. In the good old days, the idea of having a lawyer to defend yourself was a universal right. But those, I guess, were nothing but the good old days. Now, I don't see the American Bar Association anywhere around to police this type of highly unethical conduct by a group of licensed lawyers who are breaking the model rules for professional conduct by poisoning the legal profession with their partisan political conduct. Interesting, isn't it? Sure sounds like there are two sets of rules to me. Perhaps Project 65 exemplifies much more than we want to believe in America. A bunch of lawyers make the laws we are forced to live by. A bunch of lawyers control the implementation of the law as prosecutors. And finally, it's a bunch of the same lawyers who become the judges. Judge, jury, and executioner in one neat little political package. This may actually be the principal reason America is so off the tracks. Now, in this pay-to-play scheme, you must be licensed, a law license to play. You, as a member of the bar, become a select person in our society that is supposed to behave in an ethical way as a seeker of truth and justice. Right? Well, not based on this or that political ideology. And besides, we all know that lawyers and judges are among the most honest and ethical people in all of our society. Right? That would never replace justice by political ends, right? This is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network. It is what it is for Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. Thank you for watching, and please tell your friends, colleagues, and followers about us. We need your help as we all work together to try and get America back on track. Thank you.